And just maybe with that, and I think this is where you started a little bit as well, where you started with that embedded sustainability, which I really liked, which is in my mind that full systems approach. When you really start to think about how can we do this in probably the best way, but a lot of people are getting started on the left-hand side more with that compliance. What do I need to do? And that's, I think, in thinking of that business case, where a lot of people start is what's the minimum I need to do in terms of selling it, in terms of securing the budget. This is something we'll have to do. Then there is that, well, I might increase that business case if I can talk about increased business value. So what are some of the opportunities? There might be a case about responsible business in terms of we really want to understand the impacts we're having at large on the world. So the ethics value point of view, how do we engage with stakeholders? How do we understand the supplier relations? And all these boxes are not that black and white. They're often kind of, a gray area that merge into each other. And then how we do things more efficiently, that operational efficiency. So from thinking about where you are in the journey, these things are really important to think about those three buckets: your strategy, your day-to-day actions, your reporting, but also where are you in that journey, to think about what is right-sized for you right now to start crafting that budget plan. What are your thoughts, Jess, on where companies are at large and how can they best approach that, compliance only versus being more proactive and saying, well, we know there's more coming, so we might as well, do it in a more holistic way.
Yeah. So I will share what my experience was with this. So to try and get really practical, I think the business case piece is so important. So when I was at the mining organization, I was heading up the commercial department, and there was no compliance around emissions reporting. But it was quite clear to me that there was an opportunity to change out our natural gas as an energy process for the product that we manufactured, and we would ship it to steel mills in China. And I started reading about the policy position over there and how they might be introducing some of these changes. And when I first went to the board and had this as a value-adding project, I spoke in paragraphs, not numbers. And I think that's probably the number one mistake I see sustainability teams making. And so they said to me, oh, what a good idea. That it's so great to be more sustainable. We'll think about that. And when you're taking the room through the PowerPoint slide and no one's really deeply engaging, that's the screaming into the void that so many sustainability people face. So what I did instead was say, well, I don't have all of the perfect data to know exactly what's going to move the needle, but this is quite clear just on logic that there is a business value proposition in exploring this, even if the numbers don't stack up now. So again, I went and hijacked someone from the management accounting team, who now happens to be Lindsay, who is a co-founder at Someday. And I said that nobody's listening to me because I don't have the numbers around this. How would I convince this team of senior managers that we should have $3 million allocated to my department to go and do a pilot with the engineers and the consultants and think about whether this would have a return on investment? And he said, what did you present to them? And I showed him my slides, and he just rolled his eyes. He's like, you have no idea what language these people want this in. I was like, yes, well, that is why I'm here. And very quickly, my paragraphs were turned into a scenario analysis that they would do every day of the week for making financial decisions, where suddenly my idea of a project became about a risk assessment on whether there was a chance we couldn't ship our pellets into the Chinese market from 2026 onwards. And based on their forecast of revenue from the sale of product in those years, which they have to have for all their insurance and other reasons, what would the potential financial impact be on the organization? What would the shareholder position be on that? How long would it take to mitigate that risk or introduce new technology? It was a 5-year lead time to change something out like a plant. All of a sudden, there was a business case to get $3 million to go and investigate this. But there is no way that my ideas would have alone secured that budget. And that is where I really learned that as a process. So now in this era, what I would say to someone thinking about budget for sustainability is you have compliance. So you must get a budget for a headcount, if it doesn't already exist, that can do the carbon accounting and the materiality and actually assess this. Like, that's a given, and it's a very easy sell. It's compliance. Take the risk otherwise. Probably no one's going to push back too much on that now. Then I would say identify 1 to 3 projects that you know on logic have a potential business valuation. Go and find somebody whose language this is to help you build an actual business case and wrap some numbers around that. Present that as a process and get buy-in from there. That mine didn't care, and now they're working on a full decarbonization strategy for their fleet 3 years later. So I would just say speak the language and pick the projects that add business value alongside compliance, which is a given.
Spot on. I love that. Like, speak the language. That's such a key thing there, that there's still a big disconnect between the sustainability speak and, you know, the people you actually have to convince that it is important. So put it in their kind of terms: scenario analysis, return on investment, etc., risk management, and get the key people and functions already in the business involved. So we see that there's a key component there about looking at climate-related risk. Now, you probably already have an enterprise risk management system in place, a risk manager. Get them involved in this. Talk to them. What do we already have and know? And what else do I have to add to that? And how can we bring this together to demonstrate there's an actual case there, and to demonstrate, like, how are you managing risk? You're in this beast of a spreadsheet. Like, can we together come up with a solution that kind of manage, you know, sustainability risks and other, you know, business risks, bring that together into a solution that works better. So I think it is really speaking a language and tapping the resources in the business already to make sure that we move sustainability really away from that siloed approach to that more embedded sustainability. In the end, it's everyone's job. Like, ideally, have one sustainability person who's engaged with everyone across the business and make sure that everyone gets it, and does the work correctly, so that in the end, it's all about creating business value in the long run.